Alright everyone, welcome along to another episode of Martin's World. Guys, if you don't already know by now, you can help support the show and the efforts for cannabis legalisation in Ireland by signing up to the patreon.com/Martin's World, or you can also make a donation in the form of bitcoins through the martinsworld.ie website. And all of the funds that will be gathered there will be used to establish a cannabis activist hub here in Cork City, so we can bring together the cannabis activists so we can better organise ourselves to fight for cannabis legalisation in Ireland. 2021 is already gearing up to be a big year for cannabis legalisation in Ireland. So I hope I can do all that I can to help get that that bill over the line, because Gino Kenny is going to be putting a bill before the Irish government very soon. And, it's going to be the people that will force the hand of the government, because currently there is no will within the government to see cannabis legalised. And so onwards we go with today's show, guys. And today's show is starring Allison Littlefair. Allison Littlefair is based over in the UK, and she shares with me her story where in her past she competed in gymnastics at a young age, and this led to her suffering with some chronic pain a bit later on in life at the age of 15, 16. And later on then she required to be prescribed some painkillers to deal with this pain. But they didn't agree with her at all, and they had a lot of nasty side effects there for Alison. And later on, she found cannabis, and it was when she found cannabis then that she really got the quality of life returned back to her. And as a result of that, then Alison set off and she wrote a book. And she wrote a very good book called Walter and the Magic Seed. And it's about a Walter who's a wizard on a mission. And he's on a mission to spread education and awareness about the cannabis plant and to help his friend Titch, who is suffering from seizures. So it's a very good book that aims to help break the stigma that exists around cannabis, and to help get the education there to kids about cannabis, that it isn't just this dangerous drug that's always been talked about, whereas it's just a plant, and it's a very beneficial plant when used in the correct way. So again, I'm delighted to bring this interview to you guys. I hope you enjoy it, and don't forget to go check out Alison Littlefair's page. She's on Instagram at Walter and the Magic Seed, and you can also find her on Facebook, probably under the same name as well. So guys, without further ado, Alison Littlefair. Alison Littlefair, welcome along to Martin's World. Thanks very much for giving up your time this morning to come and share your story, and to help get the information out there that needs to be delivered to people around cannabis and its benefits to people. So you've got a story to share in your past. It kind of started, I believe, when you were around 15, 16, and
Yeah.
you didn't discover cannabis then till later on. So if you wouldn't mind
No.
kind of just starting off from there as to how your story gets off. And again, thanks for coming along.
Yeah, no bother. I mean, like I say, if it can sort of help someone else, that's what it's about, isn't it? So basically, I was about 15, and I had an accident at gymnastics. I did gymnastics for like 10 years. You know, I went to Germany to compete, France to compete. We were going to America to compete, and I'd like shattered my ankle basically. And so couldn't do it anymore. So I started with a bit of pain from the age of 15, and so I went to the doctors, and it was just, at the time I think it was just like paracetamol and ibuprofen and things like that back in the day. And then I ended up with hypermobility because I stopped gymnastics, so like all my joints were overstretched, so it was like pain all over really once you stop doing it, you know. So then I got diagnosed with hypermobility. Then I got diagnosed with osteoarthritis when I was in my 20s. And I started on the painkillers, which was codeine and tramadol and things like that, I think, at that period in time. Then as I was on these tablets, the pain was getting worse. I was putting weight on, just feeling really depressed. And then they put me on oxycodone, Oxycontin, pregabalin, tramadol intermittently. So I was on all of that concoction, and then the pain was getting worse and worse. And I was 4 stone overweight at this point as well. My mental health was completely shot to bits. So, I was just in a really, really sort of downward spiral with these painkillers, and like not getting anywhere, but not being able to function without them neither, because like people don't realize they're a commitment for life when you go on them sort of things. You know, it's you just can't just come. Well, I did come off them, and I went through hell, which I'll get to. But
and that's
you've got to do these things gradually. Yeah. I'm a bit like, you know, if I get something in my head, I have to just do it. So I'm not like, you know, didn't listen to the real book on that one, but learnt the hard way. So yeah, and I'm trying to think where I was on about. Yeah, so I ended up on all these painkillers, and I'd been on put me on antidepressants. I actually got diagnosed with bipolar when I was 15. Which is funny now, because obviously when you get a diagnosis when you're 15 as opposed to 40-year-old, it's like your mind is totally different when you're that age, you know what I mean? But I've got that little label attached to me, so that's okay. So I was on antipsychotic drugs and antidepressants from the age of 15. Okay. So when I come off all the pharmaceutical drugs, so what it was we'd gone on a family holiday with the kids, and my partner's in the fire brigade, and he's dead fit, you know. And we'd gone there, and he was pushing me in a wheelchair. I mean, I couldn't walk. And I just remember thinking, like, you know, this is just not working for us as a family. I want to go and do all this stuff with the kids like he is. And so, yes, I just got it into my head, and I was like, that's it. I'm coming off everything. And this was like 4 years ago. And I just cold turkey, like, stopped everything. And I was withdrawing for about 7 weeks. I mean, I could have died, I think, really, looking back. It was that severe, the withdrawals. And I lost 4 stone. So every tablet I come off, I lost a stone, right back down to my normal weight of 10 stone, which was, you know, crazy, because I didn't change my eating or anything. I literally just stopped the tablets, and all the weight just came off me.
Yeah, it goes to show what these tablets are doing to the kind of metabolic processes of the body, the normal everyday functions that's supposed to be happening. They get interfered with by a lot of these drugs that they give people to. That could be actually just given an alternative there, which would be maybe a cannabis oil, a tincture, a topical spray, a rub. There's so many ways in which cannabis could be applied to give an alternative to things. Like you say, a lot of your injuries, like your
without
pain,
all the side effects.
yeah, a lot of your pain was sports related as well, which is a very common kind of theme as well.
But then when I come off all the tablets, my pain improved by, I'd say, 70%. I didn't need my crutch anymore.
Oh my goodness.
I haven't used my crutch. You know, it's my head. I've not had an antidepressant for nearly 4 years. I mean, that's like a miracle in itself. And I've never had any episodes. I think all of it's been on all these tablets, and then withdrawing off a tablet to put me on a different tablet, and then putting weight on, and then feeling depressed. And then I think it was just such a cycle to be in, you know. And when I look back at who I was there, I just think, crikey, like, you know. But you go to your GP because you think they're going to help you. You know, you want to trust that they're going to do that, though. You do want to, you know, especially when you've got kids. Like, I've got kids. I want to feel like if there's something wrong with them, they're going to do the right thing for them. And it's quite worrying when you start questioning all this sort of stuff. You know, I mean, I've had quite a few incidents with, like, the NHS and stuff, and it's not been good, but we won't get into that. But so and then so I ended up
they do think that they're trying to help you. They do believe that cannabis is this bad thing because they've been miseducated, that they are existing in this reefer madness kind of mindset. A lot of, not all, but a lot of the doctors out there, especially in Ireland as well, because it's a top down type of thing. The information is coming from the top down to the doctors who are out there practicing this. They're getting all the classes and all these opiates. They're getting all these kind of information sessions and things where they're getting flown out here, doing these 5 credit kind of things here and there. And there's nothing like that happening at all for cannabis, because it's a dangerous narcotic, Schedule 1, only recently removed from the Schedule 4, but they should have removed it from the Schedule 1 too. I don't think, like, that's not much celebration there from that UN team.
It's just, I think, I mean, I don't know. I think for people like me and you, we just think it's sort of silliness now at this point. When, like, you know, I work with the kids, obviously we'll get onto the book and stuff, but I work with the kids, like, do a lot of stuff with the kids with seizures. And, you know, the fact that they'll give them ketamine and so many hideous things, but they won't try that. And obviously, I'm jumping the gun here from the conversation that's coming, but basically, they're now, what they're doing, instead of giving them the oil, a prescription, they're doing these kids an end-of-life care plan. I mean, what is that? What is this place? I'm just like...
Yeah, we're living in the land of nod or something like it.
It just, like, blows my mind, you know. But, so yeah, going back to Martin.
Well, can I ask,
so then actually,
when you gave up the tablets, that kind of process, what was it that you started working? Did you start immediately with the cannabis then, with the CBD oil? Or what?
Did about 2 weeks. I did about 2 weeks of withdrawal without anything at all, and I mean, it was hell. It was hell. And they kept saying, "Well, take codeine because that won't be. You won't get as severe withdrawals from the oxycodone and OxyContin and stuff." But I said, "No, I don't want any. I want to off it all, you know." And I was just thinking, I'm just going to ride the storm until I know who I am at the end of it. I mean, it was just like, who am I even at this point? I mean, that many mind altering things going on. And you just, you know, you're not happy in yourself when you're in that situation. So you can't see past it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And I basically, it was a friend of mine, and she was on the THC oil, and it had cured her cancer. And we'll sort of reduced it and left it, you know, when it hasn't got any bigger kind of thing. It didn't clear it completely, but it definitely kept it at bay. And I started researching all of that, you know, and then I ended up getting some of the THC oil, and well, like my whole life changed after that. You know, I was just able to go have a full night's sleep. I was sleeping like 7 hours as opposed to 1 hour, because obviously coming off all them, you turn into a total insomniac, because when you're on oxycodone and stuff, you fall asleep like on the toilet and things. You smash your face. I've got a friend that was on the same things as I was on, and she was drinking wine on a night. And she'd gone to the toilet and fallen asleep on the toilet, banged her neck off the toilet, the towel holder, and killed herself. So it was just like, you know, just choked herself because she didn't wake up, you know. And I remember like sort of being stood up asleep in the kitchen and like having like, and just, I mean, you were just, that was sort of functioning, you know, as a parent as well. So
Recipe for disaster, really. Something so simple.
yeah,
You'd be thinking of a
it
few
was,
glasses
well,
of
it could have
wine,
just
but
ended so badly. And really, I'm just quite proud of myself that I managed to do it all, because, you know, there's never a time when you ever really feel proud, but I think, Christ, I don't know how I did that, because I look at the sheer amount I was on. I mean, I must have been rattling,
yeah.
but all in the hope to get rid of this pain. And then I come off the tablets, and the pain, I mean, I still have pain every day, but it's nowhere. You just cope with it better, and you're just able to do it. I don't know, them tablets make you like, I can't move, like I can't, you know, they do something to your brain psychologically where you're just totally accustomed to your pain. Do you know what I mean?
You alter your state in an unnatural way that it's just not in tune with you.
Yeah.
Just
So then I ended up with the THC. Yeah. So then I ended up with the THC oil on a night, and then I ended up getting a high CBD, like whole plant extract paste for on a morning. And I was having that with my black coffee. And then then I found another lady, and she did all the cannabis teas with THC in. So I was having the cannabis teas, things like that. And I've just changed everything. I mean, even my shampoo's like hemp shampoo. I'm like pretty much 90% cannabis at this point, I think. But yeah, like I just love it. I mean, it's just changed my life, you know. So it
seems like cannabis really is a
gets
gateway
my
drug.
vote.
But it seems like it's a gateway drug to a better way of living for some people. I see so many people when they kind of go down this road of cannabis, they all want to live in a more natural kind of a way, less like
and you do, and then because it consciously I think it makes you more consciously aware and more critical thinking, more like in tune with things, and that we all should be in tune with, you know, not crazy. Oh, like I'm on about just seeing people's personalities and things for the first time, you know, like that kind of thing, like, oh, you're really, you know, that sort of awakening that you get from it. And also I mean, the sleep side of it as well. Like, if you don't get a good night's sleep, you sort of we're running on 50%. Whereas if you get a night's sleep, you can take on your day next day. And I don't know, it's just the whole plant really.
Sleep
Just
is an
works for
essential
me.
nutrient. Like sleep is it's as important as food for our body to get.
Yeah.
If you're not getting a good night's sleep because of pain, geez, like that's going to make it so hard for any other condition than you're dealing with, for it to get better. Like the major thing is good night's sleep, and that's where the most of the repair and recovery kind of goes on at nighttime.
And I do feel though, well, I mean, I'm talking from my own experience, you know, I started getting really into, once I got into the CBD and just doing all my little teas and things like that, and have my little potions and stuff. And I started really looking into the health side of food, alkalized diets, like, you know, pure water, getting the zero filters and, you know, osmosis water, things like that. Like really opened my mind up to like just trying to do the right thing for myself, as opposed to throwing yourself under the bus for the last 20 years. It's like, oh, actually, we've got to put some work in and do some stuff. So yeah, I mean, I do yoga every day now. And like, I was talking to Alan out of NI Canada, and he was like, well, how do you stay doing it? And I was just like, I said about putting your yoga pants on. I said, you know, you've just got to, when you get up, just start the day off right. If you put your jeans on and that, you're not going to get the yoga done. But if you put your yoga pants on, you'll do it. You know, so it's just little things like that. But yeah, just you've got to just try and change everything that was damaging you before. Try and turn it around. You know, and luckily I have.
Yeah,
And
that's it. I think that's another thing as well to be known about cannabis. While it'll help with a lot of symptoms and stuff like that of conditions, but it's not like a panacea. It's not a cure all for everything. A lot of the times it'll help you get you over the line, but there might be other things in your life, such as your diet, that it might awaken
yeah,
you to, hey, make adjustments here also, so that the cannabis can help you even more.
yeah,
Because if you're not getting a healthy diet, good exercise, things like that, like there's only so much, say, that the cannabis medicines could do for you.
exactly. It's a lifestyle change and commitment, really, isn't
It
it? You know,
really
we
is.
still all have. Everybody can still have, you know, a bit of junk food and do all these things, but it's the consistency needs to favour being healthy rather than, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not one for saying don't ever do anything bad for
Oh,
you ever again, because I don't think that's realistic with human nature. But I do believe that if you have sort of a ratio of 70% good, 30%
yeah.
sort of, you know, you're not doing so
I'm
great. But I
I'm an
mean,
80-20 man.
that's all you can do, isn't it, at this point?
Yeah, no, but
But
it's a good approach to have. You have to allow yourself some flexibility there to kind of be human as
yeah,
well, I suppose, and to be kind of
yeah,
thing. But at the same time, you do have to be responsible and take care of this vehicle that's
yeah,
carrying
yeah.
us through life. We're not going to live
And give
forever.
the right impression off to your kids. You know, I mean, like when
Most
you've got kids,
importantly,
like they're watching you, everything you're eating, everything you're consuming, every time you're drinking alcohol, everything like that. Your kids are like sponges and they're watching it all, you know. And so for me, I just think it's really important, like what you're putting out there, just remember that like your kids are watching everything that you're doing as well. So if you don't want them to be doing what you're doing, you know,
yeah,
it's one of them.
lead by example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we when you started the cannabis oil, so when you got through that 7 week withdrawal period, what kind of oil? So you were saying you worked with a CBD paste in the morning and some
And then it was the THC oil on the night, yeah.
It was an oil as well you had at night time.
Yeah, it was like the like in the syringes. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
what they would call the Rick Simpson oil type of oil.
Yeah,
How
yeah. Well, I get told off for saying RSO, so
you get
I
which?
try just to say high THC oil now.
Oh, you get told off for saying RSO. Okay.
Yeah, they're like, it's not just RSO, you know, and I'm like, okay. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it was Mike Wise, who's good friends with Rick, that got me into
yeah.
the THC oil. So obviously that's where I was, my thought process. But I have been pulled up on that a couple of times. I've been pulled up quite a lot recently.
I
That's
always
why I'm
say,
going off grid. I'm going off grid today to rejuvenate myself and recharge, because I lost it a couple of days ago. Because obviously I've done this kids book. I mean, I've always been an alternative writer. I've never wrote things that follow a mainstream narrative. Do you know what I mean? And but yeah, I had quite a bit of abuse at the beginning of the week, telling me that, you know, I'm not a medical professional, so I shouldn't be advocating CBD with kids and things like that. So it's been a bit challenging, you know, because I'm only human myself.
you're
So
not going to
when you're trying
advocate
to do all
for
this
it.
good stuff and then people are having a go at you, it's a bit.
But if you're not going to advocate for it, who is going to advocate for it? Because the
I
people
know,
in power in charge, the medical profession, they are not taking the reins at this. It's always been a bottom-up approach from the patients
I know.
asking for access here. So, like, for anybody to come along and say you're not a medical profession, say, yeah, I know I'm not. And I wish the
We
medical
need that.
profession were here with us arguing for this, because they're absent now. And why they're
Yeah.
absent is that there's just no proper education there for them. Like the prohibition of cannabis has hindered the research over the last 50 bloody years. And this is the biggest argument then against cannabis. Oh, there's not enough research to support it. Well, lordy da,
I mean,
you've made that the reason.
well, I keep saying this, and I will say it again, but I mean, it just infuriates me. We've got decades and decades of research about how good
You
cannabis
do.
is, you know, for certain things. And this COVID vaccine, they've had it in the work for about 3 months, and they want the whole bloody planet with it. What?
Yeah,
I'm like, all right, well, that one's okay
that
though.
one's okay.
I
Yeah.
don't, you know, it's just so dodgy and
When
corrupt, all
it
this.
suits them. Like the World Health Organization made 6 very good recommendations recently, and they only approved one of them. And all along we're being told to listen to the World Health Organization when it comes to this pandemic. So like that, there's no consistency
We're
here at
doing it. We're
all.
talking about COVID,
I
and we're
know,
sending the
I
rest
noticed when you said it, I was like,
3
oh, we're
minutes.
here. No, no, but I'm delighted in the way in which you brought it up, because you're dead right. They're allowing this
Oh,
research en masse, or this vaccine to go en masse to people. And meanwhile, they've restricted access to the cannabis for so long.
I
And
know.
the most vulnerable people who are looking for it, they could have helped them. And it's so corrupting when you actually look at the cannabis industry. Then that's there. You've the GW, the Aurora, Tilray, all of these big
Yeah.
pharmaceutical-based companies, and you've people then still in prison for it at the same time, and
No, I
people even
know.
going to
It's
court.
in America. Like I always, because I've had a few interviews with people in America, and I just find it mad that in one state you've got someone in jail, and then in the next state you're getting a pat on the back and going in a dispensary.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's
like
crazy.
I don't know. I mean, what is this place?
Yeah, I know you've heard of Philip Anthony Bevington. He's over your side of the water there, over in the UK. He's an 80-year-old man. He got caught with 26 cannabis plants. He was growing and making oil for himself. He is a stage 4 kidney disease. So it's going to
Right.
take his life, but he's treating the chronic pain with the oil he was making from the plants. But the cops came to his place, raided him, and they're bringing him to court now, and they're trying to do him for like sale and supply, I'd assume, and cultivation, because of the amount of plants he had there. But he justifies it was all for his own personal use to make oil because
There's
of the
no,
amount of plant you need.
there's no balance.
Oh,
There's no balance with anything. Like, you know, and obviously we're going off on a tangent, but you look at the child trafficking, you look at paedophilia, you look at like rape, murders, all this sort of stuff going on, burglaries constantly, things like that. But their focus is on stuff like that,
yeah,
and that is, I mean, anyone with any common sense would say, well, what's that all about? I don't get it.
yeah,
That's why I've done this book. You know, I do believe, because us oldies now should know better. I mean, like, there's enough stuff out there for us to understand that it's not all bad. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And the stigma. But it's the next generation that we really need to get the stigma removed from, so they don't have the next 40, 50 years of trying to do what we've tried to do for them, for their futures. Because, you know, like I said, what if your kids all end up on oxycodone or total alcoholics and all this, and there isn't anything else? I mean, I'm obviously focused on the seizure side of things, because that is just horrendous what's going on there. And that's why I wrote that story, just because I want that story out there. I want people to hear that the kids' story, what they go through, you know, and normalize it, and just take away the stigma to it, because it's a plant, you know, and it's
That
like
is
not
it.
that
That's the
scary.
plan.
So
No, exactly. So do tell us about the story, because I wanted to ask you a bit about that. You wrote a book. It's
yeah,
you have it there, right? Brilliant. Um,
I've got one out there. I'll send you one. If you send me your address, I'll get you one sent out.
oh, lovely. Yeah, I will indeed. I'll give it to my daughter to read.
There's one there.
I've two daughters here. She's one of them 7, and she's on a reading frenzy at the moment. So she'd be,
I know, my little girl loves reading.
and she knows all about the
It's,
cannabis plant.
like, I'm just trying to show you some of the pictures.
Ah, brilliant.
And then there's one of a big cannabis bush in it, and they all like this one because, like, they just can't believe it's in a kid's story, I don't think.
Yeah, that's it. We just have to normalize this stuff. It's just a plant at the end of the day. It's no
Yeah.
different from the wheat, barley, hops and stuff that they brew the beer and alcohol from. There's no stigma,
Well,
there's no taboo around these plants. Why does it exist around this one?
I know. Well, I was saying, obviously, chemotherapy comes from the periwinkle plant.
Yeah.
It's another plant, you know, but obviously that plant can damage you. I mean, like, chemotherapy can be bad for you, can't it? But it can just eradicate everything inside you. But obviously the amount of studies going with the THC oil for the cancer and stuff like that, there isn't all them side effects where you're burning your insides and, you know, and your hair's falling out and all the rest of it. So
It seems
a lot of
it's
people are
more,
choosing to do it.
yeah, it seems like it's a more natural way of helping a person treat their cancer. I know
Yeah.
it's not seen as a method yet, but it seems like the research is there to support the fact that THC and the cannabinoids, the terpenes, all held within the plant, can help the natural apoptosis that takes place in the body, which is just the clearing out of these precancerous cells before
Yeah.
the cancer ever takes place. So I think cannabis is something that's been missing from the human diet over the last 100 years because of this prohibition. When you roll it
Yeah.
back, hemp was grown right across the globe for all sorts of reasons,
Yeah.
industrial and food. And then come the turn of the tide there in the 1930s, they had this prohibition come in place because of all these lunatics, racists, and the Randolph Hearst and all of those guys. And here we are today, 100 years later, where people are having, like I see it as a cannabinoid deficiency in the diet of humans, because of animals were being fed.
About hemp seeds are supposed to be one of the most nutritious things you can have as well, like the seeds and everything, the whole part of it.
You feed the animals a lot of hemp products, and as a part of that, then the animals probably would have been taking in cannabinoids into their milk, to their meat, and all of that. So if you had dairy from a cow that was fed a hemp kind of based diet, there was probably some cannabinoids inside of there which would complement your own system. So I wonder how much cannabinoids we were getting from different sources, say 100 years ago versus today, and maybe how much of that is actually responsible for a lot of the conditions we see out there. Because it's.
I know. Well, I've put a bit at the back of the book as well, and because this is leading on to, I'm going to do some flashcards for them, with all the environmental things in. How we can change everything to hemp, and save the planet. So I mean, there's all that side of it as well, which we forgot about. But
no,
I just don't think there's anything else that exists that can do all these things. It's illegal.
When you start talking about it, it's hard for people not to think you're a lunatic, because it's like, one plant can do all this. Go away, you must be.
People fully think I'm a lunatic. I'm into all sorts. So there's like, well, you're mad. Well, I'll accept that.
Yeah, but what was that process like, kind of publishing that book and getting it out there and facing, say, some of that stigma?
What do you think it was like?
Yeah, it was probably a very uphill battle.
It's been really hard work, and that's another reason why I'm going away for a couple of days, because I've just put everything into it. I'm really, really passionate about this, especially the kids. I mean, it's just the most unjust thing that I've ever seen in my life. The fact that these parents know that an oil can make their kids go from having 100 to 300 tonic seizures a day down to none. I mean, like Karen, my friend, her son has not had a seizure in a full year now, as opposed to having 100 a day. His head had doubled in size. He was wearing the helmet thing, and he's at school now, and you look at him and he looks like a regular little boy. So that's what the book is about. And obviously I'm putting all the real life stories.
The NHS still won't pay for Murray's medicine at the moment, despite the fact that he's not had a seizure in a year. Yeah. How much money has he saved the NHS by being on cannabis oil? And they won't even pay for that medicine for him, but they would pay for all these other anti-epileptic drugs then. This is straight up discrimination now.
This is the thing. This is why it's so unjust. I mean, I don't care what anyone says to us. Like, you can't answer this question. So basically, if you've got money, you can get it legally. Like, you can get it. There's no problem. We don't need to go marching outside Parliament, because you can just get it. But you can't get it on the NHS. So anybody that can't afford it, the kids are just left to die, basically, or get an end-of-life care plan, or it's just not good enough. So I feel like it's all of our needs to, all of our right to bleat on about this until everyone understands, and they can't do this anymore, because this is that is the most critical thing, that and the cancer patients and stuff. I just think we'll all just do what we want to do anyway, but these people need the access to it, and I think it costs them at like £2,000 a month for them. So even if they can barely afford that, they can't afford to do anything for the other kids in the family, because all of the money's going on the oil for that one child, and it's just, I couldn't afford £2,000 a month for oil. It's just, I don't know who can, really, working class around here. I don't know who can. So it's just not right. So I do trying to do a lot of different interviews as well with the mums, so that people just get an insight as how hell their life has been for the last,
Because they're basically paying £2,000 a month for a plant that could be grown easily in anybody's backyard or even spare room. And they could produce the medicine at a fraction of that cost, and for those kids also. And there is still a lot of people going to the black market for that who don't have.
Well, they were saying with the kids' seizures, they were saying it's quite tricky, because it's got to be certain levels, and they're all different. Again, like the Charlotte's Web plant with the Charlotte's Web CBD plant. It was mainly CBD. But then a lot of the kids need a bit of THC. Some of them, if they have too much THC, it can bring on the seizures. So they're all totally different. So we need a full-on medical thing that can go and assess the child and say this is what's working for them, and then keep consistent to that, the levels that they're on and things like that. And I think that's because I mentioned to Joanne Griffiths, I said, is there any like growers that donate the oil? Because I would imagine there would, but because I know quite a few that would probably do that, but she said no, because it all has to be regulated and all of that sort of thing. So I don't know how much of,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Well,
How much is the doctors saying they're regulating something? And I don't know.
yeah, well, when it comes to kids, I can see, and epilepsy as well, and some of these
Yeah.
more severe conditions, why you would want to have a much more specified and consistent,
Yeah.
like that's the key word, is consistent. That
Yeah.
because sometimes what can happen with growers is that they can have inconsistencies between batches, because when you're growing illegally, it's much harder to keep those conditions so well defined, as opposed to the guys over in Bedrocan in Holland. Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have the same conditions day in, day out, because they're grown like in a regulated and controlled environment. So if a person,
But then if it was legal and we had these big things set up, you know, like they've set up the Nightingale Hospital or something, we could have another one of them and just specialising in all this sort of stuff. You
but
know,
there
it's
would only
just,
be a small portion of the patients that would actually need such a well-defined regimen of medicine, I suppose. If we were to have a wider access, let's say, people suffering with chronic pain who don't have
yeah,
who aren't immune compromised, they
yeah,
wouldn't need a kind of a radiation treated,
no,
like, is that's what happens with the Bedrocan stuff. They gamma radiate it to ensure sterility for safety to the patients. And that's not a bad thing. It seems like it doesn't do anything to the profile of the cannabis, but still in
right.
the back of people's minds, do you want to be consuming something that's actually being blasted with
Being negative,
radiation? It's kind of it's just it's a weird one, but it's
yeah,
I think it's a step too far for some patients. When in America, let's say, where they had the compassion clubs that started up, that worked out
mm,
very well for people who were suffering with chronic pain, because they had access to consistent medicines from growers who were able to grow in good environments, again, because they were allowed to grow over there. So that's something that could be replicated in the UK,
yeah,
Ireland, where we could open up compassion clubs, not for these more severe cases with children and stuff. I would still be of the belief that they do need
yeah,
a much,
medical professional, yeah,
exactly, dispense from a pharmacist. That
yeah,
would be where I would see those kind of medicines coming from. But for anybody else, kind of with the chronic pain, insomnia, and things like that, again, who aren't immune compromised, going into a dispensary type of place and buying some flour to be vaporized or to be made into teas, or some
yeah,
topicals, balms, whatever it is there. Like, I have the myriad of options that could be given to a person, and it can be done so cheaply too, as
yeah.
opposed to this £2,000 a month kind of a carry on.
Oh, I know. Where do they get the price for that?
It's all because of the
The
regulations,
process
and it's a
going through and
monopoly.
everything. Yeah.
They have a monopoly on it. There's nowhere else you can really get access to it, I suppose. All of the cannabis in the UK is coming from the
Mm,
Bedrocan guys, I'd imagine, as well as
yeah,
it,
yeah.
all Bedrolite and all of that stuff. Do you have a license yourself, or?
No,
Okay, so you're kind of still using illegally from the black market.
I'm illegally alive and I'm illegally using it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
I
choice
don't
you
have a
need to
license.
make, isn't it? Illegally healed, or like legally suffering and in pain, and
Yeah,
or
yeah.
just out of it, zombified on this.
But I've met quite a few people that have done a similar thing, not as severe as what I went through, but they've changed their life with cannabis, but they won't tell anyone about it because the stigma again attached to it. I'm like, but if you all don't tell anyone, then nobody finds out, and then I think if something positive has happened to you, it's your duty to tell other people, like genuinely, if something's changed your life and it's worked for you, might not work for everyone else, but there is people out there, and it is a light at the end of the tunnel, because it does feel overwhelming when you're on all them tablets and you just feel like you're just stuck down a dark hole and you can't get out of it, and because your whole body is dependent on these things, like if you don't have it, you will start to shake, or you'll get a bit manic in the head, or they're just horrendous things. So,
Yeah.
and like you said, if you've had an operation or something, a quick fix and wean straight back off it, fair enough.
Mhm.
But when you're on these things as a long-term plan with the pain clinic and stuff, there's really no end in sight. You're only going to go up and up
Yeah.
in your dosage, or you're going to go intermittently with other things, and and then you get more side effects. And
Even
so, yeah,
women who go through the monthly, the time of the month for women like that, it's common that women will take ibuprofen, the ibuprofen, and like there's a common theme there that increases your risk of heart attack, and if you're taking that for a week, once a month, that's not good for you over time, because how long do you go through that menstruation cycle? It's for many years, and if you're one of these people who every month you're taking a week long of these, it's crazy, and you could have a natural alternative in a plant.
I must have been on about 15 different types of antidepressants over the last sort of 20 years. Obviously not recently, but looking back on like my younger days, I mean, I would be on one for about a year, and then I would be depressed again and it wasn't working. So then they would put me on a different one, or we'll put you on with this one with that one. And then I would feel okay maybe for about 3 months. But sometimes you'd feel suicidal for like 2 weeks after taking the new one, until that gets in your system. And then that stops working. So then and it's just literally a vicious cycle, all these things. But, you know, I understand everyone has their own capabilities of coping with their own heads and stuff like that. So
I think I was very lucky here as a younger person growing up. When my mom and dad probably had a bit of a handful with me as a younger person, I was very energetic, to put it in a nice way. But when I was brought to the doctor, his kind of recommendation to them for me was to bring me down to the beach, let me out, run around on the beach, close the door of the car, and don't let me back in until I'm tired. And that was kind of how the doctor recommended them dealing with it all those years ago.
That sounds about normal, doesn't it?
Yeah, I definitely
burn your energy off. Yeah.
I could have been diagnosed with probably the ADHD or something along those lines.
Now they'd have you on written or something, wouldn't they?
Yeah, something along those. I found cannabis when I was about 15, 16. It was through peer pressure from my cousins, and they introduced it to me. And I think why I enjoyed it is because I got to experience the world in a new light, and a new perspective, because I was able to engage with my thoughts more. It was something I wasn't able to do before. And now it's only recently that I'm kind of realizing that's what cannabis brought to me all those years ago. Is this ability to engage with my thoughts, and actually to be engaged with me as a person, like who I am. Because all along I was just
and trying understanding yourself and things like that. It's like all things that you never really ever think about growing up fully, and then it opens up something, definitely. Whether it's your third eye or what, I don't know, but it definitely opens up something, doesn't it? It's like I said, you know, I don't know, you see like nice things in things that you would turn a blind eye to and stuff like that. I don't know, I just think it definitely makes you more wholesome, more like into nature, more into like doing the right thing for your body and all that sort of stuff. And well, that can't be a bad thing, can it? So
no, not at all. And I will always say
keep going the way we're going.
I will always say then that the cannabis isn't for everybody, but at the same time, these cannabinoids, there's no denying that they are beneficial for everybody. So not everybody likes to get high or stoned, and that's fine.
That's it. They don't need to have the THC, do they? And then there's CBG, and then I was looking at THCV. Is it that takes away your appetite completely and things like that for weight loss? I mean, there's that much to this plant. It's mind-blowing. So as much as someone might not want to take THC, they'll be part of the plant that would probably benefit them, you know, like whether it's just a high CBD or something like that for the pain.
The part where we need to break is when you talk about cannabis, is that the break through this kind of the whole cannabis culture, even though it is very nice, that the comedy and the stoner and all this kind of crack, but there's so much more to this plant. The industrial uses, the health benefits, like everything in between, it goes on. It's a very long list. And as I say, people will think you're crazy going on about it, but we're not. And I think you brought up something there a few minutes ago that you said as well that's very important, that this silence from people who experience these benefits, that is it's very harmful to the whole kind of access to the cannabis, because you need to share these experiences. And I also come at it from a different standpoint, in that my experience was that I experienced the negative side effects of cannabis prohibition at the age of 17. And rather than remain silent, I educated myself and started making noise, because at the end of it, we have to remember we live in a democracy and we are the people, and we didn't agree to these laws, and we have an opportunity to stand up, use our voices, and call for change. There's no justification for the Misuse of Drugs Act, which it is in Ireland, and I think it's a similar act in the UK. And these acts are the main acts that actually keep access from the patients. So in my journey, it brought me to kind of the crossroads where I met, there's actually this other side. So I was battling it from just the criminal side, but then I seen it from the patient side, and I was just like really gloves off at that point. I think it was Rick Simpson that actually, that was the Run from the Cure. That's when I really learned about the benefits.
Started getting into it all, yeah.
I went and I made 100 copies of his documentary, and I gave them to a local group of activists who distributed them for me. But that was just my little contribution there. Yeah, I always pay homage to the
did your bit there, though. Yeah. No, that's all I've done, really. I've just tried to contribute to something that wasn't really there. And, I just thought, how can we, add to something, and it is really, for me, it's about sort of educating. Like we said, the endocannabinoid system, it isn't just missing from the healthcare, it's missing from the educational platforms too. So if everybody can be educated on it, especially for the environmental side of it and everything, it should definitely be talked about like that, and not something to be shied away of. There's no glorifying, when you get to 14, sit and get stoned every day and do all, that. If you want to start, you see, this is the sort of stigma I get at me, well, this is what you're advocating. And I'm like, it's not for that. And it's not a teenage book. It's very, very early on, it's to get rid of the stigma from the get-go. We don't need this anymore. That narrative hasn't worked. Let's change it. I mean, it's...
Yeah, no, I experienced it even in the education system myself. I have an honours degree in herbal science. And there was a lot of push actually to change the name of the course, let's say, because when you mention the name herbal science, a lot of people herbal science, and that kind of thing. And they wanted to change the name to what was it? Applied plant sciences is what they wanted to change the name for, but the course coordinators wouldn't change it. But even within that 4 years of doing that degree, there was we done a module on pharmacology. And we got to do a choice-led project where I could choose the topic and cover it. I obviously chose cannabis, and I focused in on the pharmacology around epilepsy and the kind of the mechanisms at play.
Brilliant.
It was very good. I really enjoyed it. But what really, really annoyed me is, as part of the curriculum of that course, was the opiate system. And I was just like, well, we're herbal scientists and we're learning about the opiate system and how opiates work and these drugs.
It's not herbal. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It was a chemical-based drug that we were actually looking at. It was the opiate, a chemical synthesized one. And it really annoyed me because it wasn't like, no, there was other people in with us from other courses. It was kind of a multidisciplinary thing.
Yeah.
It just really annoyed me that it was only myself. I was the only person out of 100 and odd people in that class that done a project on the endocannabinoid system.
Cannabinoid system, yeah.
And I got stick from that. I got stick from my lecturer, and even though his daughter actually has epilepsy, and that's why I kind of did chose it, because somebody had made me aware of this, and I was like, "Feck, he might enjoy having a read through this then, because it'll be relevant."
What was he like about it?
He didn't say anything at all to me, but he didn't give me a great mark. And to be honest, I put my heart into it. Like, it was a very well-researched project, well-referenced, well-written. I thought it was definitely more than what he gave. I think I got maybe a 70 odd from him, which was a good mark. I was happy with it. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't thankless, but I just thought
it's a proper specialist topic as well.
And I thought he would have caught me aside to have a discussion about it too. And there was nothing. There was just I was blank faced. I think he just didn't even want to talk to me because he knew.
He didn't want to be associated with the other.
Yeah, it was so annoying. Like that, this was the stigma within the education field. I got told, why do you want to do projects on cannabis? This is not going to look good in your CV. And I'm just like, you obviously don't know me or the world that I'm kind of coming from.
I don't know what I want to do when I'm older.
Exactly. No, it's crazy.
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of stick, but I've now had a lot of support just lately. I need to focus more on that. I mean, I've had a lot of good people that just like, wow, we can't believe this. It's really good. And, I've even like Dr. Kelly Seaman and people like that. She wants to do a little reading of it. She's said it's brilliant and it brought her to tears. I've had a few really nice things come from it now. And my shop in America's got them, stocked them. So it's just about getting the awareness and spreading the education or spreading the awareness and making education on it. And that's it really. but I'm not a medical cannabis professional, and I don't know the ins and outs of every mortal thing. I've wrote a kid's book which just removes the stigma around the plant, and it also tells the story of what these kids are going through, because that's what it's about. It's about a little girl called Titch, and she's having seizures. And Walter and Terence the troll go to find like a remedy for her, and they end up finding the cannabis plant. And so they plant the seeds. So they plant the seeds, watch the plant grow, and make the oil and all that. And then there's all the village looking in as if what they're doing to it, kind of thing. It's all like little hidden things like that.
Yeah.
But it's just a kid's fairy tale story, but it just totally normalizes the plant, And I've had a lot of people who obviously medicinally use cannabis message me saying it's brilliant, because I've always felt like I'm doing something bad, whereas like now I've got this book, it feels like we've just normalized it to the kids so that they're not going to think, oh, like what you're doing kind of thing. I don't know, it's helped quite a lot of people just get rid of the stigma. So yeah, if I can just keep doing that, then that's what I'll keep doing. I've got another business which I obviously brings me actual money, but but this is my little passion, it's, and because it changed my life, I just really wanted to contribute something different, and hopefully I've done that.
Yeah.
So.
And what is the other business, if you don't mind me asking?
I do, well, I used to do all, the kids' fingerprints in solid silver and the kids' drawings in gold and things like that.
Oh, lovely.
But I just do pet castings now. So it's like dogs' noses in solid copper and solid silver. Like it's just an impression kit, and stamp it on and off, and then they send the kits back to me, and then I fill it with either solid silver or gold or copper, and the paw prints and stuff like that. But yeah, it does quite well because it's a bit different, I think. So I'm the crazy grandma. I will be the crazy grandma that writes kids' cannabis books and makes dogs' noses. I was like, I don't think there's anybody like me.
I'm so thankful you took the time to do this, because we do need people like yourself out there doing these things, because the misinformation that's out there about cannabis, it's really crazy what they're spouting on about, and all the time you hear from the prohibitionist side, oh, think of the children, think of the children, think of the children, but then they don't ever stop to think of the children themselves, actually. The children like Murray, and we've Ava Barry here in Ireland, and multiple other children across the island and all across the world who benefit from access to cannabis. And these prohibitionists don't think of those children. But they tell us all the time to think about the children when it comes to keeping the drugs off the streets, and
I know.
Prohibition actually causes so much more. It fuels these bloody crime gangs. Without prohibition, these crime gangs wouldn't have anywhere to make all that money from, really, and our police or our cops there, that they would be much more free than to actually go after the pedophiles, the rapists, the murderers out there.
Worked, doesn't it? We just look back at the last 50 years, it just hasn't worked. So we need to try something different now. And this is, well, I think it was just so misinformed anyway. I've watched like documentaries of the 60s, like real footage of it. You'll have seen them, where they're trying to tell all the teenagers, like they're trying to tell them the government's coming, have you been having this marijuana? And they're like all doing all this stuff. And then, but even in the video I watched, it was saying the kids at the time knew it wasn't doing that. But like, that was what the propaganda was saying. And
just right now, can I ask right now, if you were to get a knock on the door right now, and authorities were to come in and go through your house, would they find something, say it's a cannabis base, that could find you in trouble?
Well, I've got my paste and my THC oil and that.
The THC oil, which would be technically illegal, so that they could bring you to court. Are you in one of the jurisdictions in the UK where they kind of have a bit of a tolerance somewhat? Like you hear places like Durham and stuff where they...
I'm not really like involved with all that. Like I wouldn't have a clue, do you know what I mean? It's just me, mum on my own. Like I don't go to any like groups where like I'm not around anyone. The only people I'm around is like through Instagram, sort of meeting you and meeting Susie.
Have you gotten the CAN card? Do you know that the CAN card released there recently by Carly Barker, I think is her surname, and where it's basically kind of given amnesty to patients who, like yourself, you might have an oil sourced illegally. So if you did get a knock at the door, you could say, hey, look, I have a card here. And these cards are supposed to be authorized by like the head of the police chiefs or whatever like that in the UK. Right. So that's an interest.
I'll have to have a look into that then. I didn't know about that. To be honest.
CAN card. Check it out. It's an interesting one, but it's something that's just a stepping stone there until they actually just get their heads out of their arses and end this prohibition once and for all. Because this
Yeah.
this kind of I had an interview there 2 weeks ago with Pepe Rivera, and he talks about how when he talks about the Jews, when the Jews were made aware at the start that it was to kind of make them that stand out. They were second class citizens within society,
Hmm.
because of the Nazis and all of this carry on. Well, he was wearing a bandana on his arm to kind of signify how cannabis patients and cannabis consumers are almost second class citizens in today's society, and that there's so many policies there that discriminate against us, that it's no different that how the Nazis treated the Jews, or our society is discriminating against us. It's locking people up. I've a criminal conviction. I've spent time in prison for not paying fines to do with my cannabis possession, and it was more principle. But that in me, it was like I can't see any justification for that. It's time I'll never get back. And all the times I had to go to court, it's ridiculous. I wasn't able to go to America to take part in the UN. I had an opportunity to go over and sit down in the UN, a special assembly on narcotics,
You weren't allowed because of the conviction.
because of a conviction. And I was flying into a state, Washington, where cannabis was available. And my conviction was for cannabis. It was so just really annoying. But here I am, it's just, I'll keep on doing what I do. But I believe what I'm doing is going to be beneficial to society. And I
Yeah.
believe what these judges, the cops and the politicians, it's detrimental to our society, what
Yeah.
they've been continuing
Yeah,
to do.
it really is. I mean, I think most people could see now that they're not acting for the people. I mean, this is not for the people. And pretty much 90% of what they're doing now is not for the people at all. I mean, it's all about power, greed, and, and we have to be there for each other, and we have to stand by each other and all tell our stories and just, and try and push on through as hard as it is, because if we all stopped and we all just follow, then
Yeah.
What would be the result of that, and especially for our kids' futures. I mean, it's just that's my driving force, is the kids, the next generation.
Growing up, I took a lot of inspiration from the kind of the past of the Irish, but also from Martin Luther King and all of those kind of people. They were very inspirational to me. But Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, there were two very big characters there. In as I was growing up, I was like, whoa, what powerful things that these people did. Like they really just stood up above they stuck their head right up above the parapet, right into the firing line, despite all the risks and the dangers that came with it. They took that selfless act to kind of to fight for the freedom of so many people. And that then when I experienced my own injustice there from the hands of the cops, I was also kind of inspired and taking that. I was like, no, this is wrong. This is injustice. And I would gladly go to prison for it, because it's the right thing to do, I believe, at the end of the day. Patients need access, and this prohibition needs to really end. So I'm a big believer in civil disobedience in terms of just openly breaking the law in a form of protest. And it's so easy when it comes to cannabis, because you can grow a cannabis plant and protest and nobody gets hurt. And that's a form of protest. And again, going back to that interview with Pepe Rivera, the guy from Mexico, he talks about how they use their plants and the joints there, and that their consumption of cannabis is a form of protest. That if the authorities want to come and arrest them for growing a plant or for consuming the cannabis, they would be actually arresting them for protesting, which is a big challenge then that they can bring to them in the courts, because you can't take away a person's right to protest. So this is something I'm going to try to engage people here in Ireland in this year, because I don't believe there's going to be much political willpower there to see any form of legalization unless the people are really fighting for it, and I don't see any other way out.
Well, everything's just been completely taken over with COVID, though, hasn't it now?
Yeah,
like we had all these plans sort of last year, and I was like, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go over and stop it. I had all these sort of things that I wanted to do. We were trying to set up a little school to see how that would work and educating the kids, and I was going to hire out. There was so many things we were going to do, and then obviously this has happened, and it's like nobody's thinking of anything other than COVID now. And that's worrying for the protests with the cannabis side of things, because it's like, obviously we've got protests for our rights and things like that now, but it's
I held a protest back here in August, and I got a bit of stick for it, because people are like, oh, it's the middle of a pandemic, sure, this isn't important at all about the cannabis thing. But meanwhile, it was fine to go out and march about Black Lives Matter here in Ireland, even though there's not a whole lot of issues there for Black people in Ireland, but there is for cannabis patients, and there was a lot of stigma there for those protests. But I did engage in other ones, and I do believe people can engage in these smaller forms of mass protest, and where you could just go to your local station. I don't know, in Ireland, what I did is I planted cannabis seeds inside in a pot. And I went to the guard station and I said, I have cannabis seeds planted here. This is a legal cultivation of cannabis. I would like to be processed now. So basically, I believe that the people can clog up the system just with
Yeah.
paperwork. If I had people with me there that day, but sadly none of them wanted to kind of go and join me in kind of presenting a pot or whatever. But if we had like 20, 30 people there at a time coming every day to the guard stations or to the cops over in the UK, I think it would be an issue that would need to be addressed then from the top down then, because it's causing an issue in the mechanisms of the system, you know, the paperwork. I'm not too sure how it works in the UK, but here in Ireland, for me, I got caught with a joint April 2019 and I didn't get brought to court until September 2020. So it was
a joint
for €10 worth of cannabis is what I was brought up for. One joint, no tobacco in there.
You see, I thought that I thought you had to have a lot more on you than that.
No, they'll bring you for the smallest. I got put off the road for a year for specks of cannabis on the floor of my car because I had an empty baggie. He was going to do me for the empty baggie or his residue anyway, but then he shone his light around the floor of my car, found little bits of specks, and he was like, oh yeah, I have enough hair in this bag. I'll see you in court. And he went away. He was fine. And I got put off the road for a year, even though they let me drive away that night. And I need my car for my kids and to get to college and stuff. Like, oh, what a year that was to go through. It was mental torture. I swear, I was walking past the guard stations and I had visions of going in there and just strangling some of the guards because of what they're making me go through.
Just frustration and ludicrousy. Yeah, it's not right. It's not right on any level, is it? I've got no words for certain things anymore. Like, words just fail me, and I'm like, I just can't even think of a word for it now. It's just silly. I do need to say this at one while we're on. I just forgot there, which is what we've been doing at the minute is the campaign that they've got going on for End Our. I think it's on End Our Pain.
End Our Pain, yeah, I'm aware of that campaign.
Yeah, they've got a new one on there where we're writing to the MPs, and it's all pre-wrote out for you. You just have to put your name and your postcode and stuff in, and then it'll send the letter straight to whoever your local councillor is or local MP around here. And so if everyone could go on and do that on End Our Pain, because we just want to get as many signatures, get as many letters sent to them, you know, in every county, everywhere. That's what they're doing now, because obviously Billy Caldwell, is it Caldwell?
Caldwell, yeah.
Yeah, he's the only one, isn't he, that's getting the NHS
is he
access.
The only one to be getting that through the NHS, though.
Yeah. There was a video, wasn't there? Matt Hancock was being interviewed, and this was in February, was it?
That's right, yeah.
And basically, and then he put, no stone will get left unturned, and then obviously the pandemic hit, so he hasn't done a thing. No. And what they've been doing now is giving the kids the end of life care plan as opposed to just giving them a prescription for the oil. So it's just really important that everyone gets on board that and
meanwhile,
does everything we can.
The UK currently has a title as the largest cannabis exporter in the world, apparently. At least they did there a year or so ago. Because of the likes of PW and all of this stuff, and British Sugar, I think, now, who grow a lot of cannabis.
Yeah. Well, Mike Wise did a thing outside there, didn't he?
Yeah, I haven't seen that, actually.
He's calling them out. I was like, you don't care, do you?
I'm aware of Mike Wise and his work, all right. He does great work, and he's worked with Rick Simpson too. That's why I became aware of Mike Wise. And
he's been great with it. I mean, he received the PDF copy of the book before I even did it, you know, and I was asking him this, do you think I should change that? I've sent him every sort of proof and things like that over the last couple of years, and he's gone through everything with me. He's really canny, dead supportive, you know.
I laughed him.
So they're just all dead canny. And then I've had, do you know Christine, the Sisters of the Valley, the Weed Nuns. I've been speaking to her for about 3 years, and she's done the proofreads for me and all sorts of stuff as well. So they're just really it's just really nice to be part of that community. Obviously, I've noticed now there's people arguing within themselves within the community, which I didn't know about, which put a bit of a strain on me, because I just want it to be a nice place where we're all advocating for the same thing, you know. And but I've realised that it's not fully like that. Yeah, and then you've got the medicinal side versus the medical side. So you've got a lot of people that just want to focus on it medically and not the recreational side. Not, you know, say I'm an advocate for the whole plant. I do believe everyone should be able to just grow a plant, you know, not cultivate thousands and do what, but just in moderation, and it just, shouldn't have this level of stigma. It's nowhere near as bad as alcohol, and alcohol is, like there's adverts on the telly, come and drink me. So
I think that's something I regret myself, is that a couple of years back, my campaign started with like adult access to the cannabis, ending the prohibition, and then over time, after finding the Rick Simpson stuff and getting involved with other campaigners, I was kind of convinced to kind of, no, just stick to the argument of medical cannabis. That needs to be the argument, because the patients need access first. We can deal with the adult access after.
Yeah.
At the back of my mind, that never really sat well, because it was always that this is the elephant in the room. This is the issue that's causing all of
You're still applying the stigma to it by not addressing it.
Exactly. This is the issue. So I kind of regret that I gave into that kind of pressure there from within the groups, because I just didn't want to be the guy always kind of being the protagonist within the group and being like, oh no, let's not do it. We need to be more attacking this issue. I'm always the guy for, let's get feet in the street, let's go marching. Like I'm always about action. I hate this kind of these talking.
You're an eccentric like me.
I am very much so. We have to get this done. Like, and no, it's like, I hear people talking about white papers and policies, and I'm just like, put pen to paper, decriminalize cannabis, like, and do it right now. And I believe it can be done too. And I won't give up that belief either.
No, I know, you and me both. I know. Just we're more. Some people are a bit more proactive and just doing it, aren't they? And a lot of people want change, but they don't want to do anything to create the change. And and obviously with the kids' seizures things, I think when I've mentioned this to so many people, they don't even want to see the video. Like, they don't even want to know about it. It's like polluting their fragile mind. Like, oh no, that's interfering with me. I don't want to hear about that. And I'm like, but this is what's going on, and I've just realised that a lot of the time, and I say this in every interview, but there's so many people that if something doesn't directly concern them, they just don't want to know, and I think if something just totally touches your heart, like it has with you and this whole situation, and it has with me, that becomes your purpose and your drive, and you just sort of feel like you've got, I don't know, more, I can't explain it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you can't just stop doing what we're doing. I mean, it's like it takes over you, doesn't it? It's like it just becomes a real thing, real passion, and and just trying to get justice, and like, just let's sort this mess out. But I think we've got a long haul, do you?
Yeah, no,
it's not happen overnight, is it?
No, it's certainly, we'll definitely get there, though. That's the thing. Let's not lose sight, and that the finish line is certainly it's close. We have a lot of momentum. Like this MORE Act that's happening in the US, that could make things change really quickly, because we can't forget that the US was the big promoter of the war on drugs all those years ago through the UN. So if they now change, we'll have multiple UN nations which have legalized cannabis in conflict then with the UN treaties, which will need to be addressed then, because you've Canada, Uruguay, and then America, which now conflict with the treaty. So it'll have to be addressed, that the treaty will need to be nullified. I think that there's no place for it, really. It's caused so much bloody devastation right across the bloody globe. I know. Crazy. So I think there is certainly some light at the end of the tunnel for us. 2021 is certainly going to bring good things. There's a bill after being announced there this morning here in Ireland. Well, it was yesterday evening. Gino Kenny, don't know if you might have heard of him, but he's a TD with People Before Profit. But he announced he's going to be putting a bill before the Irish government here next year, which will see the legalization, or at least the end of cannabis prohibition anyway, and some form of legalization there for it. So we're good, but again, as I say, I don't believe that the government will adopt this unless their hand is forced. And the only people who can force their hand are the people. And I'm going to be working a lot to get people on the street, and a lot of action for cannabis here in Cork City and across Ireland anyway. And meeting with people like yourself and having these kind of podcasts, this is all part and parcel of it. It's all going to help with this momentum and to push this over the line. The prohibition needs to end, and people like yourself, like, you don't need to be viewed as criminals. Like, how difficult is it for you actually to get access to the THC oil currently?
I actually get it shipped to me.
Okay, yeah. Is it from within the UK or?
It's from another country, yeah.
From another country. And is it costly then, if you don't mind me asking?
It's about £300 for
A month?
20 mils, I think it is. Is it 10 or 20 mils? 10 or 20 mils, I'm not
And
sure.
is that about a month's worth, or?
Probably lasts a bit longer than that. I literally just have a grain of rice size on my finger on a night, you know.
Yeah. So
And but I have the day one, the day paste. I have that about 4 or 5 times throughout the day.
Yeah.
CBD, you know. And I've got a lady, and she does all the herbal teas. She mixes it all up and that, but it's obviously real flour, you know.
And is
And
this CBD
but I like
paste
to drink.
from the kind of the high street, from a store, or is that again coming from
What, the CBD one?
the CBD paste that you consume? Is that
That's from, I get that from the CBD Brothers.
CBD
It's
butter?
a
Okay.
original alternative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
I
heard
just
of
use
those,
that one. I've used that for about 2 years now. Yeah.
And are you
Um,
happy with that?
yeah. I
Brilliant.
can't live without it. I've got like my mum has it now, and like there's quite a lot. I must have got 30, 40 people on that paste.
Brilliant.
I said I should have white labeled the blooming thing, because honestly, I got everyone on it because they were just like, "How have you done this? And what are you taking? And what are you on?" So I just told them all, you know. So, and they all swear by it, and so
Yeah.
they've all gone on it, you know. And I'm
Oh,
like,
that's great there. And their paste, if I'm right, it's a full spectrum paste as well. It's coming from the whole plant, and there's no process to
yeah,
exclude the small bit of THC that would be naturally present in it.
naturally in it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's great to hear. And yeah, what else was I just about to ask you there? No, sorry, I've gone blank there. And
No, we've rambled on about everything, haven't we?
yeah. Yeah, no, what I was going to allude to is, yeah, it was around the pricing actually. So if you were to go to get the private prescription, you would be paying much more for your cannabis as opposed to what you're getting on the black market.
Oh, yeah, but again, it's for the seizures, it's the levels and whether it's been checked and gone through the
No,
regulations,
but
you know.
it's
So,
to show that if these guys can do it illegally and do it cheaper, like why is it not the guys doing it on a mass able to do it at the same
yeah,
price that these guys are? And there's
I
no
know.
reason for it, only because a lot of these organizations are top heavy. They like paying their CEOs a pile of money that it doesn't need to
It's
be.
just theft on the people, isn't it? It's
It
just
really is.
theft. I mean, like,
Yeah, the people over in South Africa, there, the Rastafarians, actually, they had a big protest 2 days ago. I reported on it there recently in the 420 news, and basically they were calling out the government for discriminating against them, because, as they put it, it was the Black Farmers Association of South Africa who were saying it. Is that the indigenous black people, none of them have a license to grow cannabis, whereas the big white pharmaceutical companies, they're getting all the licenses to produce the cannabis in South Africa, while the indigenous people are still being criminalized for it. And
the organic farmers, the ones that are doing the proper job, probably.
exactly, yeah. So it's double standards, and it's reflective right across the world as the how these laws are discriminating against the indigenous.
I'm just ready for like a space rocket to like take me to another planet at this point, because I just don't know what. I just sit in all of it. I just think, oh, I just don't know
No,
whether this is for me.
there's a lot of good people out there, believe me. And yeah, we all live in democracies. Like I've ran for government here. I topped the poll for the independents when I ran, which was very good, because I had a couple of other independents running alongside me who had ran before. So I done more better than them. So that was a really good acknowledgement. I didn't get voted in now, in fairness, but I'm not too sure what the situation is in the UK, but I do believe we need more people like ourselves to be kind of running, not just even to get elected, but to have our voices heard and our opinions heard, so that the people who do get elected will have to have debated against us at some points, or maybe even just heard our views and opinions and take that then into account.
Challenge them, yeah.
You know, exactly. So I do believe we do need to engage more with our democracy and with the system, and with these protests too. You know, many years ago, you could have been killed, you know, hung, treason, whatever it would have been, like for sharing your views and opinions.
I'm too sensitive for even that thought process.
Were we
like, if I think about what went on back in the day, I mean, I don't know, I would never leave the house. I'm too sensitive, me. I'm like an empath, and I just can't, like,
yeah,
it's all rainbows and unicorns, like, in my head, because if I start thinking about too much negativity and stuff like that, I don't know, like, it's just been barbaric, hasn't it?
it has, yeah,
for a long time, and there's so many injustices, and I don't know, and we've just got to pick one and focus on one. That's what I've found.
That's what I
This is
try
the
to
one.
do as well with the show. I trying to stick to the one kind of point, and it
Yeah,
seems to be drug policy, but very focused on
yeah,
cannabis across the show. Is that the way I view it now, and why I'm not afraid of sharing my opinion is because I don't view myself as a person who's free at the current moment, because say I can't go in
mm,
the back garden, plant the seed and grow this plant, which I would like to do as a free person.
yeah,
I would be criminalized and locked up for it. So
yeah,
that's the only thing that can happen to me for this crime and for sharing my voice, is that they can kind of lock me up, put me in behind bars. But in my own mind, I'm already kind of behind these bars, like not physically, but like
yeah,
kind of,
yeah, yeah. I know what you
so
mean.
so that frees me. Then actually, it's like I'm no longer afraid of these guys, because actually I'm already not free. The only thing they
Yeah,
can kind of do is put me behind bars. But even then, here in modern day, like I still will get a 6 minute phone call every day, and that 6 minute I will use it to kind of voice get my voice right across the world, kind of like I'm here in
yeah,
Cork prison or whatever prison it might be in Ireland for my
yeah,
crime of cannabis possession. And I'll have my daughters, my partner, and all of these people. I'll use my experience. I have no problem using that and getting her out there to the people, because
yeah,
they really need to see the effect that these drug laws have, just from the point of a person criminalized from it, but also from the point of
yeah,
yourself and the many other patients who are sharing their stories. There's
yeah.
so much harm caused by the prohibition of cannabis, and
Prohibition of it. Yeah, I know.
so I think unless there's more you want to add in there, I know you've some
I
other
think we've
book.
covered everything, haven't
Yeah,
we? Literally.
you've some other book
Apart
coming
from
out
COVID,
there.
we'll cover that
Another book coming
one.
out there that kind of engages with the kids on mindfulness and these other techniques that are missing from the current.
Well, that's my next book. That's my next book.
Yeah,
I've wrote one. It's with the illustrator now, and it's all about children's unhelpful thoughts and anxieties and dealing with, like other people's opinions of you and things like that. And
lovely.
it's just a really nice little fairy tale story again, but it's got loads of exercises at the back for the kids to write down their own unhelpful thoughts, things like that. And then Walter, the wizard, gives like dragging this bag of lavender and a rose quartz crystal and an up and stuff. So I'm going to put them with the book so that people can get that
Lovely.
with the book for the kids. And because I mean, my daughter's homeschooled and she's got really bad anxiety, and this pandemic and everything, I don't know what it's done to our kids at this. It's like I've got a teenage boy as well, and he just wants to go out with his friends, and he's literally lost a year of his life pretty much now. And it's just like, I don't know. So at this next book again, it's not cannabis, but I just write about things that I think,
Yeah.
need
Oh, but
more light shedding on them, and kids' anxieties and
yeah.
fears and stuff now, and
Ties
helpful thoughts.
into what we were
Right.
saying earlier, how cannabis isn't a panacea, and these tools that will be enabled through this book now that you'll release will kind of help also, again, with other, like not just kids, but adults need to know these skills too,
Yeah.
of mindfulness and how to deal with anxiety and all of these things, because they're
Adults,
natural.
as adults, we've got a lot more baggage, damage, scars, like what make you who you are. It's our journey, and we've got all these sort of experiences we've probably gone through and things like that. But if you start off right with the kids, and you start off and they understand a bit about manifestation, and they understand about like that thoughts are just thoughts, and they're not their thoughts and things like that. And like, if that education was in a school environment where they were really sort of getting that point across to kids, and that it doesn't matter that you're not the sit, like there's so many different things that need implementing from a very early age. Like you tell a kid when they're like 5-year-olds, or cannabis, it helps kids with seizures, it can change the planet, the environment. That's all they'll remember about that plant. They don't need to learn everything. It's literally start as you mean to go on for me. And I just think, like, we do meditation, we do yoga with my little girl, she's 9, like we do stuff all the time. And like, we do a lot of child-led learning, and she's really creative. And I don't know, that there's so many things that aren't taught in school now and aren't like a priority, when I think really they need to be, especially now with all of this going on, because they're frightened. I mean, they're frightened. They don't know what's happening, So if I can produce anything, even if it's a small token thing, that's going to make them understand their own head a little bit better. Like every time my daughter was like a problem, or she doesn't want a fear of doing something, once she's done it, then she comes back and I'll say to her, so what did that tell you about your unhelpful thoughts? And she's just like, oh, that they were just rubbish, really. And I was like, well, there you go, you've proved it wrong, so we tick it off. And it's just getting you to face these little boundaries and fears and things like that, not adding to them and saying, oh yeah, that might happen, and making them even, we've all got to go and get on, haven't we? And I don't know. There's loads of things I've done with that second book as well, but we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing it.
See where it goes.
Where will people find that and find yourself then as well after this podcast if they wanted to get in touch?
Just I've got the Instagram page now. That's just a recent thing, but
it's Walter and the Magic Seed.
Walter and the Magic Seed, yeah. And then the website is walterandthemagicseed.com.
Okay.
www.walterandthemagicseed.com. But yeah, you can buy the book off there, and it's got some of the real life stories on there and their donation things if anyone wants to donate. And also, once the second book's done and printed, that'll be on there as well, and all the different information, stuff like that. I'm just building like a resource really for the kids. But yeah, this cannabis one just needed to be done really. So it's took about 2 years to do it fully. But it's done now, so I feel like, well, it's out there now and it's done, and if people want it, they want it, you know. And I've sold the first lot actually within about 4 weeks. It was just like, and I thought it was going to be such a what's the word? I can't think of the word. You know, like it's not a topic that more you would expect everyone to go out, but obviously it's because it didn't exist before. So people are like, oh, it's like a book from the future. It's crazy. And a lot of people that smoke it obviously just want it as a collector's thing or whatever. I don't know, but people have just, you get it. So I got a second load of stock in the A4 size. And I think I've probably got about 40 left, and that's it. So I'm just doing it as and when they go, really. I'm not doing like massive orders and stuff like that. I've said I've wholesaled a couple of them in America.
Just owners who bought them. You got some of the kids who are suffering with it, the epilepsy, being read the books or reading the books themselves even.
Oh, yeah. I've got pictures of them all doing that. Well, Joanne and Murray and that, they said they love it because it just makes the kids feel normal when they're reading it. You know, they're not breaking the law anymore because Walter says they're not. You know, it's like that.
Did it find an international audience getting across the pond to America or even to Australia? Did it find?
Yeah, well, I was already sort of talking to people in America when I was developing it, so that's been okay. But I have had someone wanting to translate it into Thailand. Apparently, they've got some of the rights to the CBD in Thailand. Yeah. But then the book is actually in rhyme, so I was like, well, then it won't rhyme if it's in a different language, so it would need rewriting, and I don't know. So that's a bit. I've said, oh, let me just get Christmas out of the way, and like we'll just see what happens. But I don't know about that one because it's a bit. I don't know how much control I've got when something's over in Thailand, you know what I mean? And I like to because I don't have a literary agent. I don't have anyone it's just solely my thing. So I don't want to be, you know, and then I've had other companies wanting it to go with their CBD kids gummies and stuff. And I've said, no, you know, it just has to be its own thing, this book. It's not going with a brand and going with all this sort of stuff. It's just going to stay what it is, you know.
Yeah, it's not the reason you kind of got into it to kind of sell it off as anything other than what it is. It's just
and if you know any of the kids over there that want one, just send me a message and I'll send them with yours. Because I'd like the kids with the seizures to have one. There's quite a few got them, but obviously there's loads that I don't know about. So if you know,
Vera and Eva, have you heard of Vera Toomey at all? I imagine you would have.
I've heard of them, but I'm not like in contact with them, you know.
Okay, perfect. Maybe Vera would be somebody you might have on sometime because you've been doing chats as well on your own wall.
Yeah.
With some of the parents.
Just again to shed awareness on what. Then it was all about the End Our Pain campaign as well.
Yeah.
But I just wanted the ladies, you know, Joanne and Karen and that to go on. And so people have to listen to what they're going through. You know, it's like, this is my life. Keep turning a blind eye, but this is my life. It's
like, me to tears, like physically on. And I would do my show live, 420 News reporting. And I've covered the story of Murray and the time they were outside the offices, the parents and... Geez, hang on. Oh, you're grand. I just started.
I know, someone's ringing me.
Oops. But I couldn't control my emotions. The tears just started flowing, and I was trying to read the words that I had before me, and it was just, it was a mess. Like, because I'm an empath like yourself. Like, I really empathize with people and feel that the pain that they must be going through. I was reporting on another story with the cannabis prisoner, Richard DeLacy. He was only released there recently from American prison. 32 years of a 90-year sentence he served. He got locked up at 40. His wife, his son, and his parents, 4 people, big part of his life kind of all died while he was behind bars, that he didn't get to engage with those people kind of for the last part of the
Just
life.
taken his life, haven't they? They've taken his entire life.
Yeah, but again, reporting on that story, it was just like, oh, tears just started flowing again because, and I just don't understand how these policymakers can't empathize with these people when they're before them, the judges. Like, how can they disengage with this human connection with another human when it's
well, they're not human, are they? I don't know, because I
yeah.
don't know how you can implement stuff like that, especially with kids and things. I don't know how you can sleep at night. And like I said, when I talked to them, it's really affected me, because I got really like, I don't like injustice, and I don't like corruption, and I cannot get my head around it. Maybe that's a bit bipolar, but I can't get my head around it, you know. And if I can't make sense of something, it starts to really frustrate me. And when I was talking to Karen Gray, you know, I said, like, I've lost sleep over this. I don't know how. What a day in the life is like for obviously he's right at the minute because he's got the oil and he's been seizure free for a year. But all of that time, like I said, my son had meningitis when he was a little boy. He was a year and a half old. We won't get into what caused it, but yeah, he got full-blown meningococcal septicemia and meningitis, and he was a year and a half old. And we spent 3 weeks intensive care. So I've nearly lost a child myself, and there's nothing worse. There's nothing more like soul destroying than seeing your kid like that. And I just don't know how they're getting away with doing this to them. I really don't. But that's why, you know, I won't stop shouting about it and won't stop talking about it, because why the hell should we? You know, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, no, certainly. I almost had lost my life to meningitis too at an early age of 8. But luckily here I am, and still here before you.
Yeah, well, my son's got really bad eyesight from it, but he can see, but he's got really bad eyesight, you know, very short-sighted from it.
She's like, I got lucky, so I was in intensive care for a couple of days and stuff because of it, but I got through it. But what you were saying a while ago, you kind of find it hard to deal with it. One way I realize how these people kind of are so emotionless. I don't know if you know of a guy, David Icke, the big conspiracy kind of theorist guy. Like he says, he talks about lizard people. And that's kind of how I see it. I don't think they're actual real lizards, but that they're lizards in that they've no.
Yeah, they've got a negative energy about them, haven't they? They're not normal people.
You know,
I know what you mean.
They're actually lizards or reptilians.
No,
but like they have the
reptilians.
emotions of reptilians. Like in that.
How we got onto reptilians?
Well, yeah, I know. I think that's the point in which we need to start ending things.
Yeah.
No, but that's kind of how I see.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been equally. It's been likewise lovely chatting to you, and all the best with the book, and I hope it goes really well for you. The second book as it goes out. I look forward to getting the read through the first book, and I certainly will be mentioning it to parents as I encounter them. As this is a good way to introduce kind of cannabis and the benefits of it to your kids, and having a proper conversation rather than just saying, "Oh, the drugs, kids. You know, drugs are bad, kids. Like this doesn't work."
But the book isn't about a drug; it's about a plant.
Exactly.
And it's, you know, and it's like you thinking with the mindset that we've got now, but kids don't have that mindset, so they just see it as a plant, and that is the way you take the stigma away from it, you know, by not making too much of a fuss of it and just saying what it can do, you know. And it's just so we can hope. It's
in my household anyway. For my 2 kids, they know all about the cannabis plant.
Oh, man know that it's changed my life. You know, they're like, oh well, cannabis changed Mum's life. Like that, Blake's 15, and he's a real advocate for it at school. He's telling everyone and everything. I don't know if your teachers will be overly happy about that, Blake. But yeah, it's funny, isn't it? But it is what it is. And I think when you're just a bit out there and eccentric anyway, what can you do? What can you do?
Exactly. Well, Ali, I look forward to seeing more come from you. I'll be definitely staying close and watching the social media on your side as well. And for everybody out there, it's Walter.
I'm going to have a couple of days off now, though. I'm going.
And you're well due to it too. It's the season for people to kind of start relaxing and enjoying friends and family.
It's Christmas next week, isn't it now? And I just think, like, I go for a couple of days and be like around nature and just not know people, which is really good for me, and then come back, have Christmas, and then get on with next year. I mean, I don't know what's got in store for us, but
have a good period off, and come January 2021 be ready for a big move on the cannabis front, because 2021 will be a big year for cannabis. So let's hope that this time next year, if we have a conversation, and we'll be looking at things in a much different light. So
yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed.
exactly.
And don't forget to send me your address.
I will indeed. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks again.
All right, darling. You hanging on.
Yeah, no bother at all. And thanks to Alan as well. It was Alan who from DNI Canada. Without him,
It's lovely, Alan. Yeah.
Herself as well. So yeah, no, he's a great guy. So enjoy the rest of your day anyway, Ali, and bye.
All right, thanks, Martin.
And there you have it, guys. Thanks again to Allison Littlefair for taking the time to share her story on the podcast with me today. And guys, if you want to find Alison after this, you'll be able to find her at walterandthemagicseed.com. That's our website. Or you'll be also able to find her under the same name on Instagram and Facebook. That's Walter and the Magic Seed, which is also the name of the book. So guys, thanks very much everybody for stopping by and listening to the show. Again, just to remind you, if you want to support the show and if you want to support the fight for cannabis legalization in Ireland, you can do so by signing up to the patreon.com/Martin's World. And you can also make a donation in the form of bitcoins through martinsworld.ie. There's a little button up there. You can just click and follow the directions there. So guys, thanks again everybody for stopping by and tuning in. It wouldn't be a show without the audience. So guys, stay blazed out there and keep her lit. Peace. Much love.